Eric Bennett sat at table 17 in the Starlight Bistro, watching the nebula swirl outside the viewport. His fingers drummed against the white tablecloth. He checked his watch for the fourth time in 5 minutes. Station Epsilon's fanciest restaurant made him uncomfortable with its floating candles and soft music. He was more at home in machine shops and engineering bays, not places with 7 different forks at each setting. "You need to get out more," his co-worker Philip had insisted 3 days ago. "Sarah's perfect for you. She's smart, she's kind, and she actually thinks terraforming is interesting." Eric doubted that last part, but he had agreed anyway. 6 months of eating alone in his quarters was enough. 6 months of throwing himself into atmospheric processor designs to avoid thinking about Jennifer. 6 months of pretending he was fine. A Valkyrie woman approached his table. Her skin had the characteristic blue tint of her species, and her eyes were warm and friendly. She wore a simple green dress that somehow looked elegant on her tall frame. "Eric? I'm Sarah." She extended her hand. Eric stood quickly, nearly knocking over his water glass. "Yes, hi. Nice to meet you." They sat down together. Sarah smiled at him, and it was a genuine smile, not the polite kind people used when they were already planning their escape. "Philip told me you design atmospheric processors," Sarah said. "That must be fascinating work." "It's mostly calculations and stress tests," Eric replied. "Probably boring to most people." "Are you kidding? I spend my days trying to make plants grow in hostile environments. Understanding how you make those environments less hostile is exactly my thing." Sarah leaned forward, genuinely interested. "What's the hardest planet you've worked on?" Eric felt himself relax slightly. Kepler 442b. The atmospheric pressure was crushing, and the chemical composition was all wrong for human life. "We had to build processors that could handle sulfur compounds without corroding." Sarah asked follow-up questions. Good questions. Questions that showed she actually understood the challenges. They talked through the appetizers about xenobotany and engineering, finding unexpected common ground between their fields. But somewhere around the main course, Eric felt the familiar walls going up. Sarah was talking about a fungal colony she was cultivating, and Eric realized he was just nodding, not really listening. His mind was wandering to the unfinished designs waiting in his workshop. The comfortable numbness he had built over 6 months was easier than this vulnerability, this risk of connection. Sarah must have noticed. Her voice trailed off mid-sentence. "I'm boring you." "No, you're not. I'm sorry. I'm just not very good at this." Eric looked down at his plate. An awkward silence settled over the table. Sarah took a sip of her wine. Eric cut his food into smaller and smaller pieces. The romantic music playing through the restaurant's speakers seemed to mock them. That was when Eric heard it. "Help, please help." The voice was small and distant, like someone calling from very far away. Eric looked around the restaurant. None of the other diners seemed distressed. The staff moved calmly between tables. "Eric?" Sarah was watching him with concern. "Did you hear that?" Eric asked. "Hear what?" "Scared, so scared. Anyone, please?" This time the voice was clearer, more desperate. It wasn't coming through his ears at all. The sound was inside his head, like a thought that didn't belong to him. A child's voice, terrified and alone. Eric stood up abruptly. His chair scraped backward with a harsh sound that made nearby diners turn and stare. "I'm sorry," Eric said. "Something's wrong. Someone needs help." Sarah's expression shifted from confusion to alarm. "What do you mean? What's happening?" "I don't know how to explain it. I can hear someone calling for help. A kid, I think. They're scared." Eric knew how insane that sounded even as he said it. "Can you tell where it's coming from?" "Hurting, they're hurting me. Please find me." The voice pulled at something deep in Eric's chest. He couldn't ignore it any more than he could ignore his own heartbeat. "I have to go. I'm sorry, Sarah. I know this seems crazy, but I have to find them." To his surprise, Sarah stood up too. She pulled out her credit chip and tapped it against the table's payment sensor. "Then go. If someone's in trouble, go help them." "You believe me?" "I don't know what you're hearing, but I know you believe it." "That's enough." Sarah touched his arm briefly. "Go. We can figure out the rest later." Eric nodded gratefully and turned toward the restaurant exit. The moment he stepped into the corridor, the voice grew stronger. "Cold, so cold, can't move, please." Eric followed it like a beacon. The voice pulled him through Station Epsilon's main promenade, past shops and entertainment venues. Other people walked by, laughing and talking, completely unaware of the desperate plea echoing in Eric's mind. He took a lift down 3 levels. The corridors here were less polished, more industrial. These were the maintenance and cargo sections where most station residents never ventured. Eric's engineering credentials got him through a checkpoint without questions. Alone? So alone? Is anyone there? I'm coming, Eric whispered, hoping somehow the voice could hear him. Hold on. I'm coming to find you. The voice led him down a narrow corridor lined with cargo bay doors. Each one was marked with a number and a manifest code. Eric stopped at Bay 17. The voice was strongest here, almost overwhelming in its fear and desperation. In here, please, hurts so much. Eric checked the bay door's control panel. It showed a private shipping container, registered to a company called Vexel Transport Solutions. The security lock was standard industrial grade. Eric pulled out his engineering multi-tool and overrode it in less than 30 seconds. He had bypassed plenty of locks during his work on remote colony installations. The door slid open with a hiss of pressurized air. The cargo bay was dimly lit, filled with stacked containers and shipping crates. But in the center of the room, Eric saw something that made him freeze. A clear containment cube about 1 meter on each side. And inside it, pressed against the transparent walls, was a creature Eric had only seen in xenobiology texts. A dragon hatchling. It was small, barely larger than a house cat. Its scales shimmered with iridescent colors, copper and gold and deep green, all shifting in the dim light. 2 delicate wings were folded against its back, and its golden eyes were wide with terror. A metal collar around its neck pulsed with a faint red light. You found me, the voice said in Eric's head, and the hatchling's mouth didn't move. You actually found me. I called and nobody came, but you came. Eric approached the containment cube slowly, his hands raised to show he meant no harm. I'm here now. You're safe. I'm going to get you out. They took me from my nest, the dragon said, and Eric felt waves of emotion along with the words, fear, loneliness, pain. They took me and put me in this box and it hurts and I want to go home, but I don't know where home is anymore. Eric's hands were already working on the containment cube's locking mechanism. What's your name? I don't have one yet. My mother was supposed to name me when my scales fully colored, but they took me before she could. The lock clicked open. Eric lifted the transparent lid carefully. The hatchling didn't move at first, as if afraid this was another trick. It's okay, Eric said softly. You're safe now. I promise. The dragon launched itself from the cube and landed on Eric's chest, tiny claws gripping his shirt. It pressed its small head against his shoulder and Eric felt the creature trembling. That was when the cargo bay doors opened and 3 station security officers walked in with their weapons drawn. The lead security officer was a broad-shouldered Karathi with gray skin and sharp eyes. His badge identified him as Officer Dane. His weapon stayed pointed at Eric, though his expression showed more confusion than aggression. Step away from the container, sir. You're in a restricted area. Eric didn't move. The dragon hatchling pressed closer against his chest, and he could feel its rapid heartbeat matching his own racing pulse. I found this creature trapped in that containment cube. It's injured and terrified. That's private cargo, Dane said, lowering his weapon slightly. You've committed breaking and entering and possibly theft. Put the animal down and step back. It's not an animal, Eric said firmly. It's a Drakvan hatchling. They're classified as sentient beings under Galactic Council law. And it's clearly been smuggled here illegally. The second officer, a human woman named Torres according to her uniform, stepped closer. Her eyes widened when she got a clear look at the dragon. Is that really a Drakvan? I thought they were extinct. Nearly extinct, Eric corrected. There are maybe 3 colony worlds left with breeding populations. They're under strict protection. It's illegal to remove them from their home worlds, illegal to sell them, and illegal to keep them in captivity. Dane holstered his weapon but kept his hand near it. How do you know all this? I'm a terraforming engineer. Part of my training covered protected species across the galaxy. Drakvan are on the critical endangered list. Eric could feel the hatchling's fear radiating through their strange mental connection. Check your database if you don't believe me. Torres was already pulling up information on her handheld scanner. Her face went pale as she read. He's right. Drakvan are Class 1 protected. The penalties for trafficking them start at 20 years imprisonment. Don't let them take me back, the dragon's voice whispered in Eric's mind. Please don't let them put me in the box again. Eric tightened his arms protectively around the small creature. I'm not letting anyone hurt you. Dane was studying the manifest code on the nearby container. This shipment is registered to Vexel Transport Solutions. They're a legitimate shipping company. If this creature is part of their cargo, We can't just confiscate it without proper authorization. Legitimate companies don't smuggle endangered sentient beings, Eric shot back. That containment cube has a pain compliance collar on it. Look at the red light on its neck. Those are banned in 73 systems for being inhumane. The third officer, a young Tarlaxian male, moved to examine the empty containment cube. He's right about the collar. These things deliver electric shocks. They're definitely illegal here. Torres was scrolling through more information on her scanner. Commander, I'm seeing reports from 3 months ago about a Drakvan colony being raided on Pyros 4. Multiple hatchlings were reported stolen. This could be one of them. My mother tried to hide me, the dragon said in Eric's mind, and he felt the creature's grief like a physical weight. But they found me anyway. They hurt her when she tried to stop them. I felt her pain before they took me away. Eric's jaw clenched. He looked directly at Dane. You can arrest me for breaking and entering if you want, but I'm invoking Galactic Council Statute 447, subsection 12. Any citizen who discovers a protected sentient being in distress has the legal right and obligation to remove them from danger, regardless of claimed ownership or property rights. Dane's expression shifted from annoyance to grudging respect. You really know your laws. I've worked on 18 different worlds. You learn the rules fast. Eric could feel the dragon relaxing slightly against his chest. Its trembling was beginning to ease. This hatchling needs medical attention. That collar needs to come off before it causes permanent damage. And someone needs to contact the Drakvan colony authorities to report this. Torres nodded. I'll call the station medical center. They have a xenobiology specialist on duty. Wait, Dane said. He was studying Eric carefully. How exactly did you find this cargo bay? It's in a restricted section and you'd need engineering clearance to even get to this level. Eric hesitated. How could he explain hearing a telepathic voice without sounding insane? I heard something. A call for help. You heard something, Dane repeated skeptically. Through reinforced walls and a sealed cargo bay door. Drakvan hatchlings are telepathic, Torres said, looking up from her scanner. It's in the database. They can broadcast distress calls to nearby sentient minds when they're in danger. Most species can't hear it, but apparently humans sometimes can. You heard it in your head? The young Tarlaxian officer asked, fascinated. Eric nodded. Like a child crying for help. I couldn't ignore it. The dragon shifted in Eric's arms, turning its golden eyes up to look at him. You're the first person who heard me. I called for 3 days and nobody came. Nobody but you. Dane pulled out his communicator. This is Officer Dane in Cargo Bay 17. I need a full investigation team down here immediately. Possible smuggling of protected species. And get me a connection to Galactic Conservation Services. What about him? Torres gestured to Eric. Technically he did break into a restricted area. Dane looked at Eric and the dragon clinging to his chest. Given the circumstances and the statutes he cited, I think we can overlook the technical violation. Besides, if this turns out to be a major smuggling operation, we're going to need his testimony. Eric felt relief wash through him. Thank you. Don't thank me yet, Dane warned. This is going to get complicated. Vexel Transport has connections throughout the station. They won't be happy about losing valuable cargo. I don't care who they're connected to, Eric said. This isn't cargo. This is a living, thinking being who was stolen from its home. The dragon made a small chirping sound, and Eric felt a wave of gratitude through their connection. You understand. You really understand. Torres approached slowly, her scanner extended. May I examine the collar? I need to document everything for the investigation. Eric nodded, gently adjusting his hold on the dragon so Torres could get a clear scan. The hatchling watched her warily but didn't pull away. The collar is definitely a pain compliance device, Torres confirmed, her voice tight with anger. It's been activated multiple times. Recently by the looks of it. Can you remove it? Eric asked. Not safely. We'll need specialized equipment. One wrong move and it could deliver a fatal shock. Torres looked at the dragon with sympathy. But the medical team will have the right tools. Dane's communicator buzzed. He listened for a moment, then his expression darkened. That was Station Command. Vexel Transport has already filed a complaint. They're claiming you stole their property and they want it returned immediately. Their property? Eric's voice rose. They can't own a Drakvan. It's illegal. They have paperwork claiming it's a common Draken lizard from Tertius Station. Non-sentient, legally tradable. Dane shook his head. The paperwork's probably forged, but until we can prove that, they have a legal claim. No, Eric said flatly. The dragon's claws tightened on his shirt, fear spiking through their bond again. I'm not handing this hatchling over to smugglers. You won't be safe with them, the dragon said in his mind. They'll hurt you for taking me. They hurt anyone who gets in their way. Taurus stepped between Eric and the door. We can protect you both until this gets sorted out. Station security has protocols for this. How long will that take? Eric asked. Hours? Days. How long does this hatchling have to suffer with that collar on? Dane's communicator buzzed again. He listened and his face went grim. Vexel's owner is on his way here personally. He's demanding immediate return of his property and threatening legal action against the station. Eric looked down at the small dragon in his arms. Its golden eyes met his, full of trust and hope. 3 days it had called for help. 3 days alone and terrified until finally someone heard. Let him come, Eric said quietly. I'm not giving up without a fight. The station medical center smelled like antiseptic and recycled air. Eric sat in a private examination room with the dragon hatchling still clutched against his chest. Dr. Una Park, the xenobiology specialist, worked carefully with a specialized tool to disable the pain collar. Her hands were steady despite the delicate nature of the work. Almost got it, Dr. Park murmured. Just one more connection to sever. The collar gave a final spark and went dark. Dr. Park carefully removed it from the dragon's neck, revealing raw, burned skin underneath. The hatchling whimpered, and Eric felt a sharp spike of pain through their mental connection. I know it hurts, Eric whispered, gently stroking the dragon's head. But it's off now. It can't hurt you anymore. Dr. Park applied a healing gel to the burns. The tissue damage isn't permanent. She'll heal completely in a few days. Eric looked down at the dragon with new understanding. Yes. Female Drakven have slightly different scale patterns around the eyes. See these gold flecks? Males have silver. Dr. Park stepped back, studying them both. I've never seen a human Drakven bond form this quickly. Usually it takes weeks. What do you mean bond? Drakven hatchlings imprint on whoever rescues them from life-threatening danger. It's an evolutionary survival trait. Once bonded, they develop a telepathic connection with their rescuer. Dr. Park pulled up information on her tablet. The bond is permanent and mutual. You'll be able to sense her emotions and she'll sense yours. Over time, the connection will grow stronger. Eric felt the weight of those words settle over him. Permanent. He looked down at the small creature in his arms, her golden eyes watching him trustingly. What happens to her now? That's complicated, Dr. Park admitted. Legally, she needs a guardian while the investigation continues. Someone who can provide proper care and protection. Given your bond, you're the logical choice, but you'll need to register with Galactic Conservation Services. How long will the investigation take? Could be weeks, maybe months. Smuggling cases involving protected species move slowly through the legal system. Dr. Park hesitated. You should know that Vexel Transport is pushing hard to get her back. They're claiming she's not a true Drakven, just a common lizard. That's insane. Anyone with eyes can see what she is. They have forged documentation. Until we can prove it's fake, they have some legal standing. Dr. Park's expression was grim. Station security is holding them off for now, but you need to be careful. These smugglers have resources and connections. The door to the examination room opened. Officer Torres stepped in, followed by someone Eric didn't expect to see. Sarah. The Velkari botanist carried a bag filled with what looked like groceries and supplies. She smiled when she saw Eric, though concern shadowed her eyes. I heard what happened, Sarah said. I thought you might need some help. How did you even find out? Station gossip travels fast. The story of a human engineer breaking into a cargo bay to rescue an endangered dragon is all over the news feeds. Sarah set the bag down on a nearby counter. I brought food. And some blankets. I wasn't sure what a baby dragon might need. The dragon lifted her head, studying Sarah with curious eyes. Eric felt her wariness mixed with interest through their bond. It's okay, Eric said softly. Sarah's a friend. Is she? The dragon asked in his mind. She smells like growing things. Like the forests I remember from before. Sarah approached slowly, her movements gentle and non-threatening. She's beautiful. What's her name? Eric realized he hadn't thought about names. He looked down at the dragon's copper and gold scales, remembering how they glowed in the dim cargo bay. Ember. Her name is Ember. I love it, Ember said in his mind, and Eric felt a wave of happiness from her. It sounds warm. Like feeling safe. Dr. Park finished her examination and provided Eric with instructions for Ember's care. Feeding schedules, temperature requirements, signs of distress to watch for. The list was longer than Eric had anticipated. "This is a lot," Eric admitted, staring at the datapad full of information. "I can help," Sarah offered immediately. "I have experience with xenobiology. Plants and animals aren't that different when it comes to basic care needs." "You do that? After I abandoned you at dinner?" Sarah laughed softly. "You didn't abandon me. You heard someone in trouble and you helped them. That's probably the least boring first date I've ever had." Officer Torres cleared her throat. "Mr. Bennett, we've arranged temporary quarters for you in a secure section of the residential level. Station security will monitor the area. Vexel's people have been making threats." "What kind of threats?" "Nothing specific enough to arrest them for, but enough to make us take precautions." Torres handed him a security pass. "Don't go anywhere alone for the next few days. And keep Ember with you at all times." Eric nodded, feeling the weight of responsibility settling onto his shoulders. He had rescued Ember, but now he was responsible for keeping her safe. For keeping them both safe. The temporary quarters were small but comfortable. One main room with a kitchenette, a bedroom and a bathroom. Eric set Ember down on the couch, but she immediately climbed back into his lap. "I don't want to be alone," she said in his mind. "Every time I was alone, bad things happened." "You're not alone anymore," Eric promised. "I'm right here." Sarah unpacked the supplies she had brought. Food for Eric, though she admitted she had no idea what dragons ate. Dr. Park had provided nutritional supplements that would work until they could arrange proper meals. "She'll need meat," Sarah explained, reading from her own datapad. "Drakven are carnivorous. Small portions, multiple times a day while she's this young." Over the next few hours, Eric and Sarah worked together to make the quarters comfortable for Ember. They set up a sleeping area with heat lamps since Drakven needed warmth. They organized the medical supplies Dr. Park had provided. They researched Drakven care practices in the galactic database. Ember watched everything with bright, curious eyes. Occasionally she would share thoughts with Eric through their bond. Questions about where she was, observations about Sarah, memories of her home world that made Eric's heart ache with her loss. "Your mind feels sad sometimes," Ember said during a quiet moment. "Like you lost something too." Eric was surprised by her perceptiveness. "I guess I did. Someone I cared about left and it hurt. So I stopped letting people get close." "Does it still hurt?" Eric looked at Sarah, who was arranging blankets and humming softly to herself. He looked down at Ember, small and vulnerable in his lap. "A little less than it used to." Sarah stayed until late in the evening, helping Eric feed Ember her first proper meal and making sure he understood all of Dr. Park's instructions. As she prepared to leave, she paused at the door. "I know this isn't how either of us expected today to go," Sarah said. "But I'm glad I got to be part of it. What you did was brave." "I just followed a voice," Eric replied. "No. You heard someone in trouble and you helped them, even though it would have been easier to ignore it. Even though it put you at risk." Sarah smiled. "That's not nothing, Eric." After Sarah left, Eric sat on the couch with Ember curled against his chest. The dragon was finally relaxing, her breathing slow and steady as she drifted toward sleep. "Thank you for finding me," Ember murmured in his mind. "Thank you for not leaving me in the dark." Eric stroked her scales gently, marveling at how much his life had changed in just one day. This morning he had been alone, hiding from connection, going through the motions of existence. Now he had a dragon depending on him and a woman who had shown him unexpected kindness. "Thank you for calling out," Eric whispered. "I think maybe you saved me too." Ember's contentment flowed through their bond like warm sunlight, and for the first time in 6 months, Eric's apartment didn't feel empty. Eric woke to the sound of angry voices outside his quarters. Ember stirred against his chest, her fear immediately flooding through their bond. He sat up carefully, trying to calm both himself and the dragon. "Stay quiet," Eric whispered. "I'll see what's going on." Through the door's security viewer, Eric could see a tall man in expensive clothes arguing with Officer Torres. The man had sharp features and cold eyes. Behind him stood 2 large security personnel in private uniforms. "I don't care about your investigation," the man was saying, his voice loud enough to carry through the door. "That creature is my property, legally purchased and documented. You have no right to keep it from me." "Mr. Garrett, we've been over this," Torres said firmly. "The creature in question is a protected species. Your documentation is under review." "Review?" The man Eric assumed was Garrett from Vexel Transport stepped closer to Torres. "I've provided every document your pathetic station requires. Birth certificate, transport permits, everything. Now return my property or I'll have your badge." Eric's communicator buzzed. A text message from Sarah. "Don't open the door. I'm on my way." Ember pressed closer against Eric's leg. "He's the one who hurt my mother. I remember his voice. He laughed when she tried to protect me." Eric's hands clenched into fists. He wanted to open that door and confront Garrett, but he forced himself to stay calm. Getting angry wouldn't help Ember. Garrett's voice grew louder. "I know the human is in there. Bennett, I'm offering you a way out of this mess. Return what you stole and I won't press charges. Keep being stubborn and you'll regret it." "Is that a threat, Mr. Garrett?" Torres asked. "It's a promise. People who interfere with my business tend to have unfortunate accidents. Equipment malfunctions. Airlocks failing. You understand." Garrett smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "Terrible things happen on space stations sometimes." Torres's hand moved to her weapon. "That's definitely a threat. You need to leave now." Garrett laughed. "You can't touch me. I have friends on the station council. Friends in high places throughout this sector. All I have to do is make one call and you'll be transferred to some mining station at the edge of nowhere." Eric heard running footsteps in the corridor. Sarah appeared, slightly out of breath. But something was different about her. She moved with confidence and authority, and she was wearing an official uniform Eric didn't recognize. "Actually, Mr. Garrett, you're not going anywhere," Sarah said. She held up a badge that glowed with authorization codes. "Agent Sarah Chin, Galactic Conservation Service. You're under arrest for trafficking in protected species, falsifying legal documents, and threatening a witness." Garrett's confident expression faltered. "What? You're just a botanist? I had you checked out. That was your cover story. My real assignment was tracking your smuggling operation." Sarah pulled out restraints. "We've been investigating Vexel Transport for 8 months. Thanks to Mr. Bennett finding that Drakvan hatchling, we finally have the evidence we need." Garrett's 2 guards moved forward, but station security officers appeared from both ends of the corridor. They were outnumbered and outgunned. "You have nothing," Garrett said, but his voice had lost its certainty. "My documentation is perfect." "Your forged documentation, you mean?" Sarah held up a data pad. "We traced the false records back to your source. We have surveillance of you at the Pyros 4 colony the night it was raided. We have financial records showing payments to known poachers. And now we have you on recording threatening a witness and a station security officer." Torres moved forward with her own restraints. "Turn around, Mr. Garrett." Garrett's face twisted with rage. "You have no idea who you're dealing with. I have connections throughout the Galactic Council. I'll be out in hours and you'll all be finished." "Maybe," Sarah said calmly. "But trafficking in Drakvan carries mandatory sentencing. No bail. No early release. You're looking at 20 years minimum." As Torres and the other officers took Garrett and his guards away, Sarah turned to Eric's door. "It's safe now. You can come out." Eric opened the door, still holding Ember protectively. "You're a conservation agent?" "This whole time. I'm sorry for the deception. The blind date was real, arranged by my cover identity, but when you found Ember, everything changed." Sarah looked genuinely apologetic. "I couldn't tell you who I really was until we had Garrett in custody. Does Philip even know? Philip's real. He really does work in station engineering. I built my cover carefully." Sarah knelt down to Ember's eye level. "I've been trying to catch Garrett for months. He's responsible for trafficking dozens of endangered species. But he's careful. We never had enough evidence until now." Ember studied Sarah with her golden eyes. "She's telling the truth. I can feel it. Her mind is honest." Eric felt his anger fading. Sarah had been doing her job, protecting creatures like Ember. What happens now? Garrett's arrest is just the beginning. We need to dismantle his entire network. Sarah stood up. "But we have a problem. Garrett wasn't lying about having connections. His lawyers will fight hard, and he has friends who might try to continue his work." "You mean they might still come after Ember?" "Possibly. A Drakvan hatchling is worth hundreds of thousands of credits on the black market. Maybe millions to the right buyer." Sarah's expression was serious. "Until we round up everyone in Garrett's organization, you and Ember are still in danger." Over the next 3 days, Eric's temporary quarters became a command center. Sarah brought in secure equipment and encrypted communication devices. She worked with station security to monitor Garrett's known associates. Eric helped by providing detailed testimony about finding Ember and everything Garrett had said. Ember stayed close to Eric constantly. Through their bond, he felt her anxiety whenever strangers approached. But he also felt her growing trust in Sarah. The dragon had accepted that Sarah was trying to help them. On the second night, someone tried to break into Eric's quarters. The security alarms went off immediately, and station officers responded within minutes. They caught two of Garrett's associates trying to cut through the door lock with illegal tools. "They're getting desperate," Sarah explained after the attempted break-in. "Garrett's organization is falling apart. His people know that if they can grab Ember and disappear, they might still salvage something." "How long until we're safe?" Eric asked. "We've arrested 12 people connected to the smuggling ring. But Garrett had contacts on 6 different stations and 4 colony worlds. It could take weeks to find them all." Sarah looked exhausted. She had barely slept since Garrett's arrest. "I'm sorry. I know this isn't the life you signed up for." Eric looked at Ember, who was playing with a small toy Sarah had brought her. Despite everything, the dragon seemed happy. Her burns were healing and she was growing stronger each day. "I signed up for it when I heard her calling," Eric said. "I'm not backing out now." On the 4th day, Sarah received a message that made her smile for the first time in days. "We got him. Garrett's main supplier on Tertius Station just got arrested. He's giving us names in exchange for a reduced sentence." "Is it over?" "Not quite. But we're close. Another few days and we should have everyone." Sarah sat down heavily on the couch. "You did good, Eric. Without you finding Ember when you did, Garrett would still be operating. Dozens more creatures would have suffered." Ember climbed into Eric's lap. "We did it together. All 3 of us." Eric stroked her scales gently, feeling her contentment through their bond. Sarah was right. They had made a difference. And somehow, in the middle of danger and chaos, Eric had found something he thought he had lost forever. He had found purpose. He had found connection. He had found family. The attack came during station night cycle when most of the crew was asleep. Eric woke to the sound of something cutting through metal. Ember was already awake, her body tense against his chest. Through their bond, Eric felt her terror spike. "They're coming," Ember whispered in his mind. "Bad people. They want to take me away." Eric rolled out of bed quietly, reaching for his communicator. Before he could activate it, the lights went out. Emergency backup lighting cast everything in dim red shadows. Someone had cut the power to his section of the residential level. The cutting sound grew louder. They were going through the reinforced door. Eric pressed the emergency alert button on his communicator, hoping the signal would get through whatever jamming equipment the attackers were using. "Stay behind me," Eric whispered to Ember. He grabbed the heavy wrench he kept in his toolkit, the closest thing he had to a weapon. The door exploded inward with a shower of sparks. 3 figures in dark clothing rushed into the quarters. They wore masks and carried stun weapons. The lead attacker pointed his weapon at Eric. "Hand over the dragon and nobody gets hurt," the man said. His voice was muffled by the mask. "We just want the creature. You can walk away from this." "No," Eric said firmly, even though his hands were shaking. "You're not taking her. Then you're choosing the hard way." The attacker raised his stun weapon. Ember launched herself from behind Eric. She was still small, barely the size of a large cat, but something changed in that moment. Her scales began to glow with an inner light. Her golden eyes blazed with intensity. A wave of raw fear hit everyone in the room. Eric felt it through their bond, but somehow it didn't affect him the same way. The 3 attackers weren't so lucky. They stumbled backward, their weapons clattering to the floor. The lead attacker clutched his head and screamed. "Make it stop. Make it stop. They're everywhere. Get them off me." The second attacker fell to his knees, sobbing. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Please don't hurt me." Eric realized what was happening. Ember was projecting fear directly into their minds. Not just mild anxiety but overwhelming terror. Whatever they were seeing in their heads was driving them to panic. "Ember," Eric said gently. "That's enough. They can't hurt us now." The glowing faded from Ember's scales. The wave of fear subsided, though the 3 attackers remained on the floor, shaking and whimpering. Station security burst through the damaged doorway seconds later. Officer Torres led the team, her weapon drawn. She took in the scene with wide eyes. "What happened here?" "Ember protected us," Eric explained, scooping the dragon into his arms. She was trembling now, exhausted from whatever she had done. "I didn't know she could do that." "Drakvan defense mechanism," Torres said, approaching the attackers carefully. "Adults can project fear strong enough to stop most predators. I've never heard of a hatchling doing it though. I was so scared, Ember said in Eric's mind. I thought they would take me. I thought they would hurt you. Something inside me just exploded. You saved us, Eric told her softly. You were so brave. Sarah arrived minutes later, still fastening her uniform. She had been staying in quarters 2 levels up to maintain operational security. When she saw the damaged door and the sobbing attackers, relief flooded her face. Thank God you're both okay. She moved to Eric's side, checking them both for injuries. We caught their lookout in the corridor. This was a coordinated assault. Who are they? Eric asked. Torres removed one attacker's mask. The man underneath was young, maybe 25, with the tattoos of a fringe world gang. They're hired muscle. Probably paid by what's left of Garrett's organization. This was their last desperate attempt, Sarah explained. We've arrested everyone else. These 3 were supposed to grab Ember and disappear into the outer colonies where we couldn't track them. The lead attacker had recovered enough to speak, though his voice was raw from screaming. That thing is a monster. You have no idea what it did to us. What we saw. You tried to kidnap a terrified child, Eric said coldly. What did you expect? Over the next week, the final pieces of Garrett's smuggling network collapsed. The 3 attackers provided information in exchange for reduced sentences. Garrett himself, facing overwhelming evidence and abandoned by his supposed friends in high places, agreed to a plea deal. He would spend the next 25 years in a maximum security facility. Sarah coordinated with Galactic Conservation Services to track down the other stolen creatures from the Pyros 4 raid. Most were recovered and returned to their home world. 2 Drakvan hatchlings had died in captivity, news that made Ember cry for hours. Eric held her while she grieved for siblings she had never really known. It's not fair, Ember said through her tears. They were just babies like me. They didn't deserve what happened. No, they didn't, Eric agreed, his own anger at the smugglers burning hot. But you survived. And we'll make sure nothing like this happens again. 3 weeks after the final attack, a delegation from the Drakvan colony of Pyros 4 arrived at Station Epsilon. They were magnificent creatures, adult dragons with scales that shimmered like precious metals. The eldest, whose name translated as Skyfire, stood nearly 3 meters tall with wings that could span the width of a small room. Skyfire studied Eric with ancient, wise eyes. When she spoke, her voice resonated in his mind like distant thunder. You are the human who saved one of our children. I just followed her call, Eric said, feeling very small next to the massive dragon. Few species can hear our young when they cry for help. Fewer still have the courage to answer. Skyfire turned her gaze to Ember, who pressed close to Eric's leg. Little one, do you wish to return home? Your nest mother survived the attack. She calls for you. Ember's emotions surged through the bond. Joy at knowing her mother lived, but also confusion and fear. I want to see her. But Eric is my family too now. I don't want to leave him. Skyfire made a sound like wind through canyon stones, which Eric somehow understood as laughter. The rescue bond you share is sacred to our people. To break it would harm you both. No, little one. I do not ask you to choose. What do you mean? Eric asked. The bond you share makes you kin to our people now. If you wish it, you may become Ember's guardian permanently. She will remain with you, grow with you, learn from you. Skyfire's mental voice was gentle. We ask only that you bring her to visit us sometimes, so she does not forget where she came from. Eric looked down at Ember, feeling her hope blazing through their connection. I would be honored to be her guardian. For as long as she wants me. Forever, Ember said immediately. I want you to be my family forever. The formal guardianship ceremony was simple but moving. Skyfire spoke ancient words in the Drakvan language, and Eric felt something shift in his bond with Ember. It grew stronger, more permanent, like a thread of light connecting their hearts. Sarah stood beside him during the ceremony, her hand finding his. You know this means you're committed to raising a dragon, right? They live for hundreds of years. I know, Eric said, smiling. I guess I'd better start planning for the long term. Good, Sarah said softly. Because I was hoping to be part of that long term too. If you'll have me. Eric turned to look at her, seeing past the conservation agent to the woman who had stood by him through everything. Even with a dragon daughter? Especially with a dragon daughter. Sarah leaned closer. I told you that first date was memorable. 6 months later, Eric's life had transformed completely. His quarters had been upgraded to a larger space that could accommodate a growing dragon. Ember was now the size of a large dog, her wings strong enough for short flights around the residential section. Sarah had moved in after her assignment officially ended. She kept working for Galactic Conservation Services, but now she operated from Station Epsilon, tracking other smuggling operations while building a life with Eric and Ember. Eric had reduced his terraforming work to part-time. Instead, he spent his days helping other rescued creatures adjust to life after trauma. He and Ember had started a program working with Galactic Conservation Services to rehabilitate trafficked animals. On a quiet evening, Eric sat on his balcony watching the nebula swirl outside the viewport. Ember lay beside him, her head resting on his lap while she dreamed. Sarah emerged from their quarters carrying 2 mugs of tea. "She's getting big," Sarah observed, settling into the chair next to Eric. "Dr. Park says she'll be twice this size in another year." Eric stroked Ember's scales gently, marveling at how much had changed since that night in the restaurant. "Sometimes I still can't believe this is my life." "Regret it?" "Not for a second." Eric took Sarah's hand. "I was so lost before. Going through the motions, hiding from everything. Then I heard Ember call and everything changed." "She saved you just as much as you saved her," Sarah said. Ember stirred, her eyes opening sleepily. "I heard that. And Sarah's right. We saved each other." Eric smiled, feeling the warmth of their bond and the peace of having found his place in the universe. He had started that evening expecting nothing more than an awkward blind date. Instead, he had found family, purpose, and love. All because he had listened when a lonely dragon whispered for help in the dark.